Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome back to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about scene to strategy. And I am so delighted to have with me Miss Mary Carrig, who is a professional actress in Los Angeles, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. She graduated from Bowling Green State University. And everybody who listens to my show knows I'm a big Bowling Green State University fan. She graduated from there as a theater major with a BA in speech communication. She lives in Los Angeles since 1990, acting in film and television and on stage. You may recognize her from her films such as Hot Take, The Depp Heard Trial, 2022, Law and Order True Crime, The Menendez Murders, 2017, and Secrets in the Woods, 2020. Ms. Carrig is an accomplished stage actress, and her passion has always been Shakespeare. She has extensive training with Shakespeare and Company in Lenox, Massachusetts, and in Los Angeles and Ventura County. Ms. Carrig taught and directed youth companies and formed the Conejo Valley Shakespeare Society back in 2008. So without further ado, welcome, Ms. Carrig.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
So we'll get right into it. You've got such an accomplished career, and I've watched these movies, and I've seen you, and they are great movies. And I know that you do so much on stage too, and I haven't had the pleasure of seeing you on stage, but I really want to get into how your acting and how leadership has been tied together, and how it has impacted understanding of leadership on and off the stage. Can you talk about how that work as an actress has really shaped that?
Yeah, I think that, everything starts with a passion. I did my first play when I was 6 years old, and that was it from then on. But what started simultaneously with the acting is directing and creating projects. And from when I was a little kid, I would direct plays in our backyard, and I was always trying to create something. So simultaneously with my acting training, I've always want to create something new. It's not just about me. It's about the story. It's about creating something that everybody can come together on. So it's all of my acting training has really informed my leadership things that I do, whether it's starting a company. And again, it's like when it comes to being, we call ourselves creatives now, whether you're an actor, you're an artist, you're a musician, it's coming from divine inspiration. That's my belief. God puts the desire in us, and then it's our job to then use our talents, right? As the gospel says, don't bury your talents in the ground, and use them. So I feel like that's part of my drive. Is training myself as an actress has helped me lead people, because the more that I learn about human behavior, the more I learn about myself, the more I can reach out and find out what people's strengths are. And to me, it's all casting. Some people call it HR, some people call it whatever. I say everything is casting. So whether I'm casting a play, or I'm creating a company, or I'm running my volunteers at the church, it's all the same sort of a wheelhouse of learning what people are good at, and then finding the right place for them and connecting people. Like I like to say, I am my own Yenta. Is I want to find what people's strengths are, and then get them to meet like-minded people, and we work in one direction for some sort of a result.
That's powerful. I know that you, by the sheer nature of the work that you do, storytelling is a powerful part of that and has been part of your life for a very long time. How do you approach connecting, especially emotionally, with an audience using that you just described? How do you do that? And how can leaders learn from making that connection?
I think the number one thing is being specific. When you tell a story and you're very general, you lose people. So I have to really always come to it from my own personal work, my own personal perspective, and then and be very specific. And then people will be able to connect with that emotionally, physically, intellectually, all the different ways that we connect as human beings. Um, by being specific. So even when I'm also a lector at my church, and part of that is I all my training and everything comes into one. So the first reading in the Mass is always the Old Testament, and that keys into my Shakespeare training, where it has to do with, it's more formal, it's more verse, there's poetry in there. And then the New Testament is more about letters. So it's personal. So if you're just reading and you're just trying to reach everybody, you're going to lose everyone. But if I'm going to just only talk to Shanda and say, hey, I just got this amazing letter. You won't believe it. I just got this postcard. You won't believe where George is in Budapest right now. And look what he said. Right? And that's what it's all about. When it comes to theater, being a good actor, being a great leader is looking at the person as the individual and being really specific and being able to hone in on who you are and what your strengths are. And then how do we all work together?
That's leads me right into my next question because I was thinking about what you're saying about how we can collaborate and work together.
Mhm.
Leaders often use the phrase, speak with presence, being present.
Mhm.
What are some of the techniques that you use to help you basically command a room to use that, to leverage those gifts?
Well, I think that's our theater training, right? When you're on stage, you must be present. You can't be thinking about what you just said or what you're going to say in the next moment. You must be present. So that's the greatest training in the world. And then when you're outside of that forum in the world in whatever capacity, it's I have to always keep practicing that, of being present, staying there, not letting my thoughts go into whatever I'm going to say next, but to just stay and to me, a big thing is trust.
Hmm.
Trusting, you must trust the process. I've been training, my Shakespeare training began at Bowling Green. That's really where I had a great professor who inspired me and gave me the opportunity. And then I have just been hungry and thirsty for it. Even now, all these years I've been doing it, and I found Shakespeare and Company in Lenox, Massachusetts, and that was by hook or by crook ending up in Boston, Massachusetts. And they're a constant source for me of continuing my education. I think that's really important for a leader, to not be stagnant and to keep educating myself so that I can be open to changes that happen in the environment, with people, or what have you.
We talk about that as part of being a pen leader, keeping sharp, keeping on top of your education and those experiences that make you a more well rounded leader who can lead from that both experience and education that you've gained. So I do say that I know that individuals who are familiar with this is that you can get dull and out of practice. And I think what you're saying here is that for the leaders out there, do not take a credential for granted and think that that's going to help you keep those around you motivated and keep present. You have to practice. There's so many distractions out there, and it's very noticeable when you see your leaders who are distracted. Am I right?
Yeah, and the thing, in my experience with the going from acting to teaching to directing is I always I monitor how I'm doing by my students or my actors that I'm directing, is because if I have to be able to communicate what I do. I feel like I'm really good at what I do, and I've spent my life honing it, and I continue to, hone my skills, and it's about everything. It's body, mind, and spirit. It's not just one thing. And but I can see in my students and the people, men, women, and children that I direct, I've always had like casts of thousands in many things that I've done. And I judge what I do by the result of what my students are doing or what my actors are doing. So one of the things we did during 2020 when the world was shut down is we did not stay stagnant. There's a writer named Ian Desher, and he had put out in 2019 a challenge to whoever wanted to read the entire Shakespeare canon, which is 38 plays and all the poetry, to read that as a group in 2020. So of course, being an organizer, I jumped on that, and I didn't just want to read it, I invited actors to participate. So we started at my home. We would just read in the living room, and we would talk, and we were following the schedule of doing a play a week. And if you know Shakespeare, it's a lot. COVID hit, everything, hit the skids. And once we sort of came up for air around May, my partner in this, whose name is Jason Rennie, and he's part of the Kingsman Shakespeare Festival, he said, look, the festival was canceled for 2020. So would you like to record the canon? And he barely gets that out, of course. I'm like, yes, of course, we're gonna record the canon. So that's
It's a lot.
it's
I'm just
but I'm like, I have to show you, well, on my wall, my poster right there, it's kind of in the fade, but that's my Shakespeare project. We formed a company from then called Shakespeare Project LA, and you can go on YouTube and watch all of the recording that we did. It went a little over a year because we were so in love with each other in this process that we sort of wanted to eke it out a bit. But we did begin, and the process was always the same. We followed the schedule, which started with 12th night. And I would cast it every Sunday night. I would cast it. We would have Monday off. We would rehearse Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it was a variety of things. And the beauty of like that the world kind of stayed still during COVID, we didn't. So all these actors came together, and we were honing our skills and working our skills. Part of them was learning this technology of these squares that we're on, right? So
mhm.
one of the evenings, Thursday nights or Friday nights, we would have a tech rehearsal. And that was like, say, for example, I'm going to hand you a letter, right? And you're in the square next to me. So if I have to rehearse, do I hand it this way or do I hand it this way to,
Ah,
you're going to pick up the thing. And then we played with backdrops and costumes, and it was just amazing. But it was a feat because it was every week we did it. And so we rehearsed all the days. Sunday afternoons, we would begin recording at 3. And depending on how long the play was, like a Hamlet went a little bit longer, we would have a little bit of glitches here and there. But it was, and it was stress.
so much fun, but stressful too,
My
because you kept on a schedule, it sounds like too.
keep it on schedule. And so like there were some nights, and I'll tell the truth, some Sunday nights we would do the recording, and then what I would physically do, and up here in my closet, I have all the plays, all in binders with all the copious notes and everything on them. So Sunday night we would finish recording. I would take that script, which would be sitting in front of me, move it to the left, and start the next one.
Mhm.
Sometimes I would put my head down and cry. Because the plays would have, some of the plays have 60 characters.
Well, this says a lot about what you're saying about with leadership and this practicing. Your determination to get this done, to keep everybody sharp and going. You had a plan. You're like, okay, we're going to do this from the very beginning all the way, and you didn't cut it off. You really you went past the year time that you expected to do, but you gave really the time and the attention it needed to get it where you should have it because it is recorded and it is great practice. I think that says a lot about your character, strength of character to get it done and to make sure that bring this to the world. But it also sends a message to leaders who are listening right now, are thinking like, again, they may have a project that might take a long time and
Mm.
they start off and they have the passion. They got to get the other team members very passionate about it. And this leads me to the question is like thinking about rejection as an actress.
Yeah.
You've been through this. When you talk about rejection, reinvention as part of your journey, what advice would you give to someone who might be going through that right now, especially as a leader?
Yeah, the thing about rejection is I got that out of my vocabulary several years ago, and I wish I could pinpoint that moment where I changed using the word rejection to it wasn't right for me. In casting, you don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So as
Mm-hmm.
an actor, we're always the last ones to get the notices to show up. And I'll have an audition and they'll go, okay, if I get the job, okay, you're working tomorrow. Well, what that means is you have to always be ready. Always, always, always ready. You don't have a week, you don't have a month. You have to be there tomorrow and you have to show up and be professional. But when it comes to rejection, it's really in my experience like, and it was a lot of tears and a lot of hard knocks. My husband would always, I thought my husband wasn't supportive of what I did. And finally I said, it seems like you're not supporting me. Why? He said, well, I don't like it when you cry.
Aw.
So like
Mm-hmm.
early on, I would be out here and like, you don't get the job. You don't know why you got the job. And you take everything so personally, which you should. But then experience taught me, you don't know. Sometimes they cut the role. Sometimes they changed it from a woman to a man. Sometimes you looked like the casting director's ex-wife. And they're like, no,
Mm-hmm.
you can't quite pinpoint why she's not right. There's a myriad of things that are involved in these decisions. And yeah, you take it personally, but I've learned like the stage fright thing. I changed using the word stage fright, which is paralyzing, right? Fright
Mm-hmm.
means you're an animal stopped. But I talk about it now as stage excitement.
Ah. Mm-hmm.
So when I go up there and listen, I still get stage excitement every time I get in front of well, before we speak, before I get in front of an audience in any way. But have to change, I changed my point of view to say, I'm so excited. I'm so excited and passionate about this that I can't wait to get in there. It's like, coach, put me in. So I look at it that way, but then I have to use all my training, my Shakespeare and Company training. And part of that is the physical stuff. So breath work, grounding, all the different things. And they have a million different ways of going at it. That's the brilliance of Shakespeare and Company training, is there are a million ways, and then you find the way that you you can key into. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things in training. One of the things that we talk about is how do you respond to things? Do you respond auditorily? You talked about people who listen to a podcast. Some people want to listen to a podcast. And in Shakespeare's time, you wouldn't go to see a play, you would go to hear a play. So it's kind of like we're in full circle now, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
some people you're very visual and you want to watch the podcast. Um, some people it's a kinetic thing. So you find out as an actor, and this works for everybody, right? You talk about taking theater classes is this is beneficial for everyone. And part of what's also kind of been on my resume is training professionals for public speaking. So
Hmm.
anybody who, I teach the same thing across the board. Anything that I teach a theater student or one of my actors, it's the same principles of grounding yourself, your physical work, your emotional work, your mental work, and putting that all together, being the best you.
It's excellent. Well, this last question is probably I find it a lot of my guests like it. But are you reading or watching anything? Or you might be watching your movies, but are you reading and watching anything that you can share?
Well, I have to say this because when I saw that, I heard the question and I heard the one thing that I like to say is, or I was question for you. Do you know the two books that Abraham Lincoln had on his desk at all times?
I do not.
Okay, they're the same two that are the most important to me. The Bible and the complete works of William Shakespeare.
Okay.
So anything that you want to learn about, all the other stuff that's I reference, it all comes back to those two things. If you want to learn about human behavior, they're all in the Shakespeare plays. You want to find out about how to handle difficult people, how to motivate people. It's all in the Shakespeare plays. And then you go back to the Bible, there's also all the stories, who did it right, who did it wrong, right? You've got King David, he's a king, he's great, but then, uh-oh.
That's true.
Right? So, but the
Right.
thing that I'm really, I love documentaries. I love, love, love documentaries. The Billy Joel documentary,
Hmm.
I've seen it, and it's really for so many people for 50 or 60 years, however long he's been doing this, it's the soundtrack of people's lives. And I'm always fascinated about what makes people tick, what motivates you. That's why I'm an actor. Is I love people and I love to try to figure out what motivates you and all that. And so the other documentary is the one about Titan,
Okay.
the tragedy, which, again, this is Shakespeare. It's Shakespearean tragedy. It's about hubris, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about people following blindly someone because they had hubris to do something, whether it should be done or not. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, talk about the reading. I have all this reading to do all the time. I'm reading scripts, I'm reading plays, or keeping up in the world. But my two grounding things are Shakespeare and the Bible.
Well, excellent. Well, I can't thank you enough for giving that perspective. And for those that may have to really dust off their Shakespeare if they haven't read it in a while, I've seen some wonderful plays. I had the privilege of catching Othello when I was in New York, and Denzel Washington was in it. And
Wow.
it's amazing how themes can carry right into the modern day. So, I can't thank you for actually encouraging people to get back with some of the classics. So thank you for that too.
You're welcome.
Thank
You
you.
are welcome. As
Thank
I
you.
say to I taught eighth grade for 13 years. I came in as a guest artist in the springtime, and I taught Romeo and Juliet every year. And I always preface with the kids, I would say, "How old are you?" And they say, "We're 12 and we're 13." And I said, "Okay, we're going to study Romeo and Juliet. First thing is, don't try this at home." You know, it's like,
Excellent.
hey, you're gonna fall in love and you're gonna do this, but like, let's not go overboard. Let's
Let's-
learn from all of these.
yes, we're going to learn, but we're not going to put anything in practice there. Excellent. Well, again, I can't thank you enough, and even giving those pointers as a reminder. And, we also want to thank our listeners and watchers of the Pen Leader podcast. We appreciate your feedback and, your information that you bring to the table too. And we would encourage you to do that at info@maesassociatesltd.com. We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Jennifer Pensition, who's fantastic. Thank you for all your support. And of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mace & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.mazeassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.